It's been a very important draft for the Cleveland Browns organization. And at the beginning of the process, as we got here in January, what we wanted to do is there were certain pieces in place. We went through unrestricted free agency to try to build and strengthen our teaming to get better. And that was part of our strategy in terms of going into this draft as well. Now, with that being said, I want to say one thing. Now, my kids, Catherine and Jack, I haven't seen them now in about 6 weeks or so, but I did tell them, don't get mad at me. I just said, hi, Catherine, hi, Jack, if they're out there. So apologize about that. And I'm sure you'll talk about, like, LeBron James' amazing game last night, won't you, Coach?
Absolutely. What a shot. Absolutely.
So with that being said, you guys, we got 2 quality players here, I truly believe. I think with Baker Mayfield, what we have is a guy who we talked about, who wins the game of football, is ultra competitive, is revered by his teammates and anybody who has ever been around him. This is a guy that has earned everything he has ever had from high school to college and now up here. He is a winner. He's competitive. He really is. And then Denzel Ward. With Denzel Ward, he is one of those very unique and gifted players that he is, as you all know, with Ohio State, it's 0 press man coverage. I talked to some coaches here earlier this week, and they were telling me certain things about him. Great kid, loves the game of football, exceptionally fast with the change of directions, incredible ball skills. And I couldn't be happier in the position we are right now with regards to the acquisition of these 2 players moving forward.
I think John said it. We're very excited to add 2 really good football players to our team. And again, he just took you back through how we got to that process. Obviously, adding the free agents to our team allowed us to do certain things. But before I really get into all that, I got to thank, first of all, my coaching staff for all the work they put in, and John's personnel staff. It was a lot of work to go into this, to make these decisions that's going to better help our organizations as we move forward. But he said about Baker, again, here's a guy that wins football games, tremendous accuracy. Obviously, the guy was the best college quarterback this year by far, in our opinion. And going through our process and meeting with him, spending time with him, putting him on the board, digging into everything about Baker, we felt very comfortable as a coaching staff and as a personnel staff that this was the guy for us. And then when you talk about Denzel Ward, you're talking about one of the best corners, pure corners in this draft, in our opinion. And having him here in our facility and being able to spend that time, and again, doing all of our due diligence on both of these players gave us a chance to put these players on our football team.
John, you acknowledge that this is a good quarterback class, and obviously all these kids are winners. But what is it about Baker that separates him from like those other top 3 or 4?
Well, it's a combination of things. I talked about hand size. He's got 9 6/8 hands. When he came in here, we kind of measured his hands. He's got 9 6/8 hands, and that's good for the elements in November and December. You know what? He's got feet to extend the play. He has really good accuracy. He's got quick release. He has a strong arm. His efficiency in the red zone offense is, it's uncanny. If, in fact, you go look statistically at all the different breakdown and categories of that quarterback position, he's either 1 or 2 in any of those quarterback positions. But you know what else separates him? He's hungry. He wants to be a really good football player, and he's going to be a great football player.
Is it fair to say that you could have made a safer pick at quarterback and that Baker might have a higher ceiling?
Well, everybody's draft board's set up differently, and when I recite to you all the best available player in this draft, for the Cleveland Browns organization, this was the best available player. And I think that what he brings to this organization, I couldn't be more excited to him after, and those other guys are really good quarterbacks too, but I just felt this was the best fit for this organization moving forward.
A whole lot of quarterbacks that size to get drafted that high.
Yeah.
So why was it not such a concern for you?
Again, okay, if you want to take one of those stats, okay, if you look at the balls batted down at the line of scrimmage, guess what? He was the number 1 guy who had the least amount of balls batted down at the line of scrimmage. What he does mechanically is he gets back faster than anybody in terms of getting the play back. So that gives him an extra couple yards to be able to see the field, extend the play, and make those plays downfield.
You spend a lot of time thinking about that, and that is a factor in how it would translate to the next level.
You know, we as an organization methodically thought about all these different types of scenarios. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's how they played the game of football. You know, that came into play, but the guy knows how to play the game and knows how to win.
When did you know that he was going to be the pick?
When did I know we were going to? Well, I think when you make a pick like this, it is important that you have unanimous consent with everybody within the organization. And we basically came to an understanding, I would say, Monday or Tuesday.
John, before you hired Scott McLuhan as a consultant, he was identified and publicly complimented Baker Mayfield and said he reminds him of Brett Favre. That would be his pick. Would you have made this pick without his consultation?
Yes. And here's why I do that, is because when you make a pick like this, you want unanimous consent. There are a lot of good scouts in that room, and all of them saw it that way as well. So I have no problems whatsoever with saying that if Scott's a friend of mine, and he's a really good scout, if he was here or not, I would have still done the same thing.
Do you see Brett Favre and Baker Mayfield?
I see Baker Mayfield and Baker Mayfield.
We saw last year with the Texans kind of really played to Deshaun Watson's strengths. In other words, they kind of played it, a lot of college stuff, and we see the game changing more and more. As you guys go into it, are you going to try to play to his strengths and not just make him a pocket passer, or what are your plans?
Well, I think we'll do that with any player that we have. I think that's important, that you put a player in the best position for him to have success. But I think we all know heading into this that Tyrod Taylor is going to be our starting quarterback, first and foremost. So let's make sure that we understand that. And it's understood by Baker that he needs to come in here and learn the National Football League game. You know, he's going to learn from Tyrod and learn from Drew. And I think that's really important. But we will, I know Coach Haley extremely well, we'll do everything we can to put him in the best position when he plays to have success.
Can I add something?
Yes, you can.
You know, I've always thought for a young man's development, you know, in Baker's fix, why not have a chance to sit back and see how the game of professional football is played? It's a very complicated game. So why not learn from some of those veterans in that realm, understand the complexities of defense, watch the game slow down, give him a chance to actually see what this game of football is all about, because it's hard to make that transition. Step right in there and do that. So to give him the best chance of success organizationally, that's kind of why we've said that, you know, it's give him some time to grow in this thing.
Absolutely.
He does have for a visit. Was there something specific, or you too, this question, something specific that struck you? I mean, you said he's a winner and he wants to win, but I just wanted something that really struck you about Baker.
I think Baker is he really is a neat kid. He's humble. He really is humble. He is intellectually, he is a very smart guy. But the one thing I realize when you get around him, he loves the game of football. He loves to study the football. He loves to play the football. You know, he's probably one of those guys as a young man, he tried to compete at every little sport, and he wanted to be the best he could possibly be. I mean, he was like that in high school. He's like that in college, and he's going to be like that in the National Football League. He loves the game of football.
Absolutely, and I'll add to that. This guy has a chip on his shoulder. I think we all know that because I think he has a burning desire to be the best. I think what I saw from him is a guy who's a leader of men, and I think that's very important. You know, I think he gets his teammates to play at a whole different level. I thought that was seen at Oklahoma, and I expect that he will do that here. He's got to earn the right to do that, and I think he understands that. To go along with all the other characteristics that John talked about with completion percentage and all that. And when he was here in our building, the dialogue, we spent 4 to 5 hours with him, and we had him on the board for about, I would say, 4 hours of that time, and he did outstanding. I mean, it's more to playing quarterback, I think we all know, than just throwing the ball. I mean, you got to understand the game and be able to process the game and play under duress, because that's what pro football is. And I think this guy can do that at a high level.
Well, he did have an arrest, and there were shenanigans on the field, and there have been stories about him even through the draft process that have not been real glowing. I mean, how do you address that, and will you put up with that stuff?
Well, first off, my faith says every man may deserve a second chance, okay? Have you ever been 19 before? Have you ever been 20 before? Okay, young men do certain things, and you know what? They learn from that, and they'll learn from that. This guy is I like the guy. He is very mature. He's very smart, and I bet you, we all learn from our mistakes. I learned from my mistakes in the past too, but I'm better today than I was a year ago. So I have no problems with, a young man being allowed to, understand the mistakes he is. Let's move forward and let's, not do it again. That's how I look at it.
John, can you give us an idea of how thoroughly all that was vetted and what stones you guys unturned to make sure you were comfortable?
It was so thoroughly vetted, I can tell you there's order. Yeah.
I know you guys have this plan about keeping the rookie off the field because you set it up with two veteran quarterbacks. But the fact is, at the combine, he said he wouldn't even sit behind Eli Manning. Do you think it's going to be a problem keeping this colt in the barn?
I look at this. You know what? Competition. We talk about we want the best possible competition we can have in training camp. Okay? That's great. That's great to have. But when you have that guy, he's also got to understand this is a very tough business. And he's fortunate enough to have a coach like Hugh Jackson to kind of lead this thing forward and develop him as a quarterback moving forward. I mean, you got to make this guy the best long term, and that's what he's thinking about. I mean, you have to teach him to understand to go and play long term in the National Football League. Understand the game of football first. As I've always said, in college you play the game, in the pros you're going to learn the game of football.
John, can you clarify the 9 6/8
Yes.
hand measurement is like a half inch bigger than the combine? Is that common for you guys to get a different measurement? And
Actually, I did it 3 different times just to make sure it was right with 3 different people, and every time it was 9 6/8 here in our building. Sometimes at the combine they may rush through those processes because it's almost like an assembly line type of measurement, and it's not the true measurement. If you just extend your hands out the way it's supposed to be extended, and he just may have just gone like that. But he's 9 6/8.
John, why Ward over Chubb? Because, obviously you had a really top defensive end sitting there too.
Because I think Denzel Ward's a really good player.
In terms of what is it that strikes you about him?
What do I like about him? I like the ability of him being able to play in this defense where we need shutdown corners, because Greg really wants some more shutdown corners. He's got the speed, he's got the athleticism, he's got the quickness, he's got the ball skills. And then the way they were teaching him, I believe at Ohio State, they were sometimes teaching him to play the man instead of vertically tracking the ball. And once he gets that understanding, he's going to be a really good football player.
John, did you field any offers that made you give any serious consideration to trading down from 4?
I did I had numerous phone calls, and there were probably half dozen or so, that may have wanted to come up there. At the time when you value, again, I always talk about when you place a value on the player and then you place a value on the actual trade mechanism and you try to, see which value is higher. It never panned out to be that the player was always higher than the value that was being offered.
How much of a consideration was the positional need there, maybe at corner, when there are other good players at end or guard or whatever at 4, the idea to get a shutdown corner?
I mean, everybody's got various opinions on who a good player is and who's better. I mean, at this thing for the Cleveland Browns organization, this was the right player to have it for.
We know that, your philosophy that we've talked about in the past is 6'2" for quarterbacks. You said there are always outliers, but what about this guy made you think, hey, we're going to be willing to go forward with an outlier at number 1?
Right, I think you just said it. He is an outlier, and he's an outlier that's really good. I mean, we can't stress it and say it enough. I mean, this guy is as good a quarterback coming out statistically that there has been. And then you take the other characteristics that we look for in leadership and getting guys to play and the hunger and the desire to be the best. I mean, there is no question that it all added up for us.
In your discussions with Baker, you've talked about hey, these guys got to understand Tyrod's a starter and everything.
Yes.
He was pretty, defiant at the combine about not settling for that no matter where he ends up. How did he respond when you had those private conversations with him about
He gets it. He wants to compete, and we would never stop a player from competing. But I think John just stressed it. I mean, let's be honest in this room. We've been through playing young quarterbacks here at Cleveland for the last 2 years and putting them in some tough situations. So I think it's really important that he understands when he's ready to play, he'll be ready to play. But that's tough for a young guy playing in this division in a National Football League in our system. So I think it's the right, and again, and kudos to John for setting this up the right way. We have a veteran player in Tyrod Taylor. We have another veteran in Drew Stanton, that this young man can come in and learn the game and not feel like he has to walk out there and be everything right away and learn how to play in the National Football League before he plays.
John, do you think this pick is the Mayfield pick? Do you think that's going to define your spot here in the Browns' history of general managers?
All I care about is winning. That's what I want to do. I want to win, and I think you can't have enough talented football players on your roster. And you know what? When you have the quality of coaches that you have on this coaching staff who are going to begin to teach and develop young men, and you keep breeding them quality football players, that's when you begin able to win. That's how I look at it every year. Yes, sir.
I gotta ask you just because the couple years were pretty tumultuous, but what do you say to the people who say that Mayfield's, some of his behavior is reminiscent of Johnny Manziel?
You know, as I look at, I mean, you guys are going to try to create, I mean, here's how I look at this. In doing all of our research with Baker Mayfield, he is an individual that has earned it all the way through his life. As I look at this thing, whatever he has done from high school to college and now here, he has earned and really worked his way up there. And the one thing I really love is when you talk to the Oklahoma staff, he comes in, when he gets to Oklahoma, he begins to learn the playbook in 3 days. He loves the game of football. He loves to study the game of football. Okay, I have no qualms about this guy whatsoever as a man or as a football player. I think he is a really good person.
To what extent, maybe you as well, to what extent did you guys try to gauge Mayfield's appetite for playing in the whole 9 yards of the Cleveland Browns situation, coming off some rough years, playing in the Midwest, he's not a California boy. Some of those guys don't like playing out here, but all that stuff. What's Mayfield's appetite for playing for the Cleveland Browns?
He's excited. You know what he was when we called him up on the phone, and I'll say this, and I'm going to embarrass him, and he's going to get mad at me tomorrow. Here's how humble he is. He was actually in tears. He was so excited. I mean, that to me speaks volumes of how much he cares and how passionate he is about this game. He's excited to be here.
Couple more. There's so much that comes with being a number one pick, a quarterback here in Cleveland, where Tyrod's going to be number 29. What was it in your process as you went through it in meeting with Baker, and this is for both of you, that made you feel comfortable that he is mature enough and able to really shoulder that type of weight and responsibility that at some point is going to come with being the future franchise quarterback?
When he comes and sits here and talks to you all tomorrow, you guys will see how mature he is and see how he handles himself on a public stage. When you sit with him in a one-on-one conversation, you know what? He can actually hold a conversation at different levels in mature fashion. He's not, and those don't bother him. I mean, as I look at him, he's fine.
And I think John said it. I think the other characteristic a young man must have coming here to play quarterback is you got to have some inner strength. And this guy has that. I mean, again, if you look back through his history, he's had to earn and fight through every situation to be where he is today. And I don't suspect he'll do anything different here than that.
You know, one thing I will add, I was just sitting here thinking about that, is I've always thought that Alex Smith is a very mentally tough individual, okay? This guy has a degree of mental toughness like Alex has too. So he's got some mental toughness to him.
How would you characterize this decision versus Sam Darnold? Was it very easy? Was it difficult? Was it close? Can you characterize the gap?
When you were at this position, you are going to study everything. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of research. It took a lot of patience. It took a lot of listening. At the end of the day, to me, Baker Mayfield was why we picked him number one, because he was the best of that bunch, in my humble opinion.
John, how was Hugh involved in the quarterback evaluation of all this, and when did you tell the coach what the pick was going to be?
Well, first off, we came to unanimous consent as an organization Monday, and I will tell you this: we went out on a little quarterback road show, and we started out in California, and then we did the 2 California guys, and then we went down to Oklahoma, and then we went up to Wyoming, just to sit there and watch the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, and they would sit there and they would grill him on the X and O's, and it was really a fascinating study just to watch the depth and the recall of these guys as it unfolded. And then when you sit, and I thought this exercise is great, then you bring them into this building again, like a couple weeks later, and then you have the offensive staff actually be able to begin to digest the offensive playbook, and then you kind of gave them a break, and then you kind of did the recall thing on them. I thought it was masterful because it shows you can measure talent, but you also have to be able to measure that mental quickness and that mental acuity in terms of picking up that playbook as fast as you can. And you may want to elaborate on that, Coach.
Well, I think the most important thing, I think what you're really asking is how involved was I? I have walked. Yeah, I was in the loop. I have walked lockstep.
You know how many times he would sit? We sat in there with all the scouts. I'm just saying, with all the scouts, I turn around and there's Hugh, and he's in there. He's in there with us doing all the quarterbacks. And this was Saturday and Sunday.
Well, I laugh because I understand why you're saying that, but there's John. Me and John talk 4 and 5 times a day, and we've talked about not just the quarterbacks, but every position that we're putting on this football team. At the end of the day, he shows the respect that I am the head coach of the team, and I show the respect he's a general manager. We work in collaboration in this whole deal. So there hasn't been anything that's been done. I've heard all the things that's been said. That has not been the case at all. And I respect that people want to think that or whatever that is. But me and John, we've been, since he's been here, from the first day he's gotten here, we've been in collaboration about this whole process to put better players on our football team.
Can I say something? He's not the head coach. He's the head ball coach. You can laugh a little bit, y'all.
This is the second quarterback in a row that you've taken from the Big 12 conference as a general manager. Is it difficult to project a quarterback from that conference in the defenses they face to what's going to happen?
No, I mean, everybody tries to do that. No. Can they win? And there's certain things you can measure that on. If you are going to say, can he play in the elements? I say go to the 2016 West Virginia game and see him play in the snow. It's how they play the game of football. I have no problems with that. Now, the track record, everybody can say it's a little bit spotty, but these are 2 really good football players. He's a really good football player.
What did you guys learn about? What did you guys learn about Denzel Ward in the pre-draft process and when he came here for the local day? And sometimes you hear because he's from this area.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you hear like friends and family, and maybe that might add distraction or whatever to a guy. What makes you comfortable with him in that way too?
Because he's really a good young man. I think his family's done a great job with him. I think Ohio State's done a really good job with him. And I think he has a burning desire to be one of the better corners in this league. And he has the characteristics as a player, the speed, the hips, the quickness, the suddenness, to be a really good player for us.
If I may add, Coach,
Sure.
I apologize. I thought before we were coming down here, Greg Williams, you know how Greg gets, he kind of pulled me in his office. Come here, look at this text over here. I'm getting all these texts from the Ohio State coaches. They say this guy is a great teammate. That's pretty cool.